Hello, 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 coaches and leaders. I have two phenomenal women on with me, Andra and Sarah. They are the founders of the Principals Exchange, which is this really cool platform, and they're going to share about it with you. And they're also the founders of the Principals Exchange Winter Conference or Conference. And I know you guys have had it at different times of the year. It's going to be a winter conference this year. So I'm excited for everyone listening to kind of learn more about professional development opportunities. But today we're going to talk about what they call the support gap, the kind of leadership support gap, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I know those of you listening, you're like, "Ooh, this feels like like ooh, like hits me in the heart," right? Because I feel like that says a lot about like we promote people into leadership and don't give them the proper support they need to be successful. So we're
right.
going to talk about that today. I'm so excited about that because it very much aligns with my philosophy and my work around supporting coaches and leaders. So first, before we jump into it, I'd like to welcome you both to the show.
Oh, well, thank you. We're so excited to be on with you today.
We are. We're excited to be here.
Yay.
And we're so excited to have you as the keynote for our conference that you were just talking about too. So
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
so excited to have
Yeah.
you.
I'm going to be talking about resistance, my favorite thing to talk about, as the keynote for the conference. It's a virtual conference, and yeah, I'm excited to be with the leaders, at the conference. And I love that it's virtual too, because anyone can access it. You don't have to like grab funds
Right,
for
exactly.
travel and all of that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, as fun as that is, we know a lot of people love that travel, but especially this time of year in the middle of the winter, it's easy just to have that virtual option we
Yeah,
found. So,
and fit it into people's busy lives.
right.
Right. And it's going to be recorded. So if you can't get on live, then we have that option too because we know the realities of principles.
Right.
Yes, yes. And both of you were principals.
Right. And it's just, yeah, even if you mark the day off for yourself, it doesn't always mean that you get to spend the whole day in front of the computer at the conference. We hope that you mark the day off and get to do that,
Yeah,
but
live.
that option's there.
Yeah, the
Right.
Makes it
walkie-talkie
accessible.
tends to always go off.
Right.
Yes, I know. So when I'm coaching folks, I'm like, turn your walkie off.
Right.
Be present.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you lay
Make
down
it
at night and you're like, wait, was that a walkie-talkie?
your phantom walkie-talkie noises. All
Right.
right. I would love you just to briefly share with everyone what is it? What do you do in the education leadership world currently?
Sure. So, we both left public education 4 or 5 years
Oh yeah.
ago and started out supporting new teachers and doing professional development. We wrote a book on student engagement. But even after leaving the public school system and being in schools throughout the country, really, we kept seeing that there was this lack of support for principals. And so we founded the Principal Exchange on the idea of having a place kind of like Teachers Pay Teachers for principals, where not just us, but other school leaders. We've got principals, coaches, consultants who create resources for principals so that they have somewhere to go and they don't have to make their own resources or try to find them somewhere else. And then it's evolved into other supports because we see that lack of support for principals like the conference, professional development. We have a principal academy. And our whole goal is just to support principals because we don't see that there's other supports out there specifically just for school leaders. It's an
Yeah,
isolating
we
position.
always say that when you become a principal, they give you the keys to the building and then they leave. That's it. Like, here you go, take it over. And you're kind of just left hanging there. And so we really are trying to close that gap. And even if we can't close it completely, show principals out there that like we recognize it's there, you know.
Right.
We see what's going on in those school buildings.
Right. We see you.
There is in the leadership world outside of education, there's a principle called the Peter Principle. Have you guys heard about this?
We
No?
have.
No.
Yeah.
It's named after Peter Drucker, who's just a big name in the leadership realm.
Okay.
And Peter Drucker, he kind of named this thing that we all feel, which is the Peter principle is that people essentially keep getting promoted and eventually they get promoted out of their skill set. And
Hmm.
so it's we see great teachers and then they're like we I'm calling it promoted in like quotes,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's okay, now you become a coach, you should know how to help other teachers be good because you're a phenomenal teacher. And it's like, hold on, my skill set was working with children, not
Right.
adults.
Right. It's a big difference.
Right.
And there's a gap. And then we have, coaches or even people going from often I see teachers to assistant principal to principal,
Uh-huh.
right? And even that skill gap, right? Teacher to assistant principal, I like to call it buses, books, and behavior. A lot of times assistant
Yep.
principals are kind of
Right.
navigating
That's
all of
yeah.
that. And then there's a skill gap with that, but then there's assistant principal, principal. There's still a gap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Then you move into the instructional world and coaching teachers and all of these formal evaluations and more of that like HR side. Like, okay, now I have all of these super difficult conversations with teachers and parents and figure out how to still make people be happy in their jobs and go do it. Like,
Yeah.
it's just missing. It's really difficult. And then you feel isolated as a principal. We also talk a lot about being in that principal role. You don't when you're a teacher, you've got like your other teachers on the same hall as you, and your
Mhm.
grade departments and things like that, people you can collaborate and work with. Once you make it into that principal job, you have teachers and then you have like central office, but you don't have that support system anymore. And that's what we've
Right.
really tried to recognize and then start creating is like a more of a support system for principals to be able
Hmm.
to have somebody else
Yeah. To
there.
talk to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
That's
you may
exactly.
have an AP or you may have an instructional coach, but you don't have somebody else that does exactly what you do in your
Yeah.
building, and you're like that only person that doesn't. And so we
Yeah.
want to close that gap for them as well.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I love it. There's a support gap. So, what are your thoughts around what are the biggest things that you find is in the gap that people need support in? And then
Mhm.
my second question is, how do you see how do you see closing that gap? Like what kind of supports happen?
Right. So for the first part, when you say the biggest gaps that we see, one of them, like we said, is just that isolation. They don't feel that they have a community. So that's a big part of why we started the principal exchange was as much for that community for principals as it was for the resources. So that community might be the vendors on our page. We've grown a really big Facebook page that we leverage the Facebook page more for community, and like they love the Facebook posts and the things of just people that get you. And so that's what we want to see in our conference is of course we want to give strategies and we want them to have things to take back to their building for themselves, for their teachers, for their students, but we also want to create that community for principals so that they feel like there's like-minded people who get it. Like we get it, we see you, we know what it's like to be in a building day to day, and so do these other people because we see that big gap in community for principals.
Yeah, another big gap that we saw is how to have those like constructive
Mhm.
conversations. You get into that principal role, and there may be teachers that you need to like have a serious conversation with it. This is not the level of instruction in our building that we need, or this isn't how we're going to handle behaviors with children, or things like that. And that can feel very daunting to be. And so then we found that principals typically will like try to avoid those things and it spirals. And so several of our workshops, our sessions at different conferences and stuff, they've always been around, how to have those conversations without killing the culture. Because that's really what
Mhm.
they're scared of. They're not going to
Yeah.
like me. They're not going to understand. They're going to think I'm like being too critical. Like
Hmm.
how you find that
Mhm.
balance. That's been a big thing that we found
Mhm.
too, is how to stay ahead of it and then how to
Mhm.
manage it all
Right, that's what I was
principles
gonna.
and like time management and I've got to figure out instruction. I need to do observations. I have to be in all these IP meetings. I need to be able to have conversations with my teachers and these parents that come in. And then I also have to find time to just be like a support system in my building
Right.
or be visible for the students or deal with the referrals that come through the office. And then I have all of these goals in my school improvement plan, and I don't know how to make those happen. So, how to prioritize and have some time management in that to make sure it gets done
Hmm.
without you sacrificing your whole life for it.
Right. Yeah, we often see that principals feel like, we say teachers don't get a lunch break, teachers don't get this, but principals often too, like they half the time they don't even stop in their day to have a lunch break or have time to go to their own personal doctor's appointments and things. So we're trying to change that mindset of principals too. Like there's systems you can put in place. It's okay to delegate. You don't have to feel like you have to take everything on yourself or be the expert of everything. Like, I feel like that's the pressure that gets put on a lot of principals as the leader of a building. You have to be the expert and the one that's the leader of everything. And that's just not the case. So, those are the types of things that we try to put within our supports, like in our academy, in the resources that we make, in the conversations at these conferences and things to help principals change their mindset on
Yeah.
all of that.
And something that I love that it's first of all, I could imagine as you're talking, I could imagine people listening being like, yes, yes, like they like nodding, like yes, they're in their car listening to this episode. Like, yes, that's me. That's
We hope so. Yeah.
and so one of the things I love about conferences and the opportunity with conferences is principals get to choose to fill in their own gaps, right? Because
Yeah.
people
Right.
have different support gaps, right? Some folks need more help with navigating, getting into teachers' classrooms and doing the evaluation.
Mhm.
Some folks
Right.
need more support in having those different kinds of conversations or building culture, right? And
Right.
so I love the opportunity of it's a bit like choose your own adventure with conferences.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what you take back into your own building and things is your choice. You're right.
Yeah.
And that's a big benefit, hopefully.
In some of the sessions that we're going to have at our upcoming conference, at the end of January are things about like tough talks with teachers and finding balance in the new year. That this idea of like people over paperwork is one of our session titles. So we're going
Mm,
to hit on a whole lot of these kinds of topics during our conference here because we know that this is what principals are struggling with and this is
Right.
what they're like shouting in their cars that they agree with. And so we've brought in a lot of people to try and help meet those gaps, not just some like high frequency things that you hear out, nothing that's overly like theoretical, but real practical
practical.
things
Mhm.
that we are actually seeing in
Right.
buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're very much about practical, like our goal is always, whether you're listening to one of our podcast episodes or you're at a conference or you're just following along on our social media, it's that you can implement it the next day. Like that's the
Mhm.
thing we always want is not big, huge overhauls because that's not manageable. But
Mhm.
what can you change tomorrow that's going to kind of give you some of that sanity back in your life?
Mhm. Yeah. No, I love that. Um, I love all this. And I do want to share also like practical things about resistance. I
Yeah.
often like in my own because I'm so steeped in resistance,
Mhm.
I for
Right.
years, you just hear this messaging like resistant teachers
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
first of all, we're not going to label people. It's people experiencing resistance.
Right.
Um and I have a framework for resistance, and I'm going to share that
Mhm.
during for navigating and breaking through resistance. I'm going to share that during my keynote, and I believe keynotes should also be practical, and
Yes.
that
Yeah.
people don't just walk away inspired, but empowered to make a difference
Yes.
tomorrow.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, and that was one of the big things when we talked to you about setting up your keynote and that you mentioned when we were talking with you is that I want it to be motivating, but not just motivating, but also practical. I remember you saying that
Yeah.
because you want them to feel motivated and just obviously when you leave a conference, I think you have a feeling that I get at conferences that I want people to leave with, but you also want to give them those practical things to take back because at the end of the day, it's about what is this going to do in your building for your building, you know?
Yes. So I'd love to ask you guys, as you work with principals and kind of navigate, help them navigate these support gaps. I would love to hear something practical now. What is one of the most recent or common support gaps that you experience? And what is like one of the most common ways that you like, what are the most common how do I want to say this? Like ways that you support people, right? Like what's the most common advice or coaching that you give principals to close that gap?
So one of the biggest things that one of the root causes, we really, really try to focus on two things. One is what is the root cause here? Like what's
Mhm.
under all these things? Let's stop putting band-aids on things and
Yeah.
get to the real issue. And then we talk about like our realm of control. Within that, what
Mhm.
can we control and what can we not control? And we're going to take like 3 minutes and we're going to throw all those things out there and we're going to complain about it all and then we're going to shove it out the door and we're only going to focus on what we can control. And a lot of things that we have worked with principals on really come back to like that overwhelming time management. I feel like I have
Mhm.
way too much to do and not a lot of time to do it. Now, some people that may be in them trying to get behavior under control. Some people it's been in improving test scores. Like we've worked with a school and they had a 0% pass rate for a couple years. Like I
Wow.
can't like our teachers are not experienced teachers. We can't move them like their turnover is high. Like how do we fix this problem first? Like and so it's really been about helping them prioritize what do we need to do? What can we accomplish? And what can our teachers accomplish?
Hmm.
And helping them work through that thought process of what's going to make the biggest impact in what order. And then we're going to focus on that right now. And we're going to let the other things go. Like
Hmm.
we can't do behavior and instruction and culture and climate all at the same time.
Hmm.
So
Right.
let's work on what will make the biggest impact right now. Let's make a plan for that. And then once we've achieved that, let's go to the next step.
Okay, wait. So I would love is I don't know if there's kind of a series of questions you think through, but something I heard, and tell me if there's if you're super strategic about this. What I heard was asking the first question is what would make the most impact now? Is it do you
Yes.
usually deal with one thing or more than one thing?
We try to bring them into that one thing.
One thing.
Principals typically come to us with this long laundry list and we're
Yes.
what's going to make the biggest impact. And sometimes they'll think their problem is instruction, but really if we focused on behavior, it's going to actually fix the instructional and academic issues. So it's finding that one thing.
I
Yeah.
love it. So what's the one thing that's going to make the biggest difference or make the
Right.
biggest impact? Sorry. All right.
Impact.
And
Yeah.
so I'm sure you help people whittle it down.
Yes.
And then the next thing is what I heard was asking, what can I do? And
Hmm.
then what can the teachers do to make that impact? Are there any other
Yes.
questions that you have them ask themselves around that?
It's that control kind of thing. Like
Okay.
as we go through that process that you just talked about of of your staff and yourself as the leaders, what are the things that you can't control? And we don't use those as factors anymore. Like we throw those out. We literally have
We have
a
a
graphic
graphic.
organizer, yeah, that puts those on the outside. And
Uh-huh.
once they're acknowledged, we acknowledge them, they're gone and they can't be part of the conversation anymore because we have no control over those.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
often I find principals like they kind of like cycle through like they sometimes like people say the same thing over and over like I heard you say that like I
Yes.
want you to feel heard.
Right,
Um and it often they're cycling around something they can't control.
Yes.
right.
So they
And
wish
yours,
they could. That
right.
comes up a lot with like behavior or like parental involvement or getting people in the building. Like we can't control that right now, but like what can we control that might impact those
Impact
things?
that.
Like
Mhm.
what let's really dig into the root causes. A lot of times we go through that. I don't like why is that? Why is that? Why is that? To help really drill down. Like
Mhm.
we have really low test scores. Okay, why do we think that is? We have really inexperienced teachers. Okay, why? Well, we're in a really rural community, so we don't have access to outside. Okay, like, and then we start there. Okay, so how can we build up our instructional staff? Do we have instructional coaches in the building? What supports can we have? How can we offer this? And then we work our way back up. But it's
Mhm.
trying to promote that reflection all the way down to the root issue because what we've also found is that we're like, okay, we have these low test scores, so we're going to buy this curriculum and we're going to give it to all of our teachers, and now let's move on to this. But we never got to the root cause. And so then
Mhm.
next year or the year after, well,
Mhm.
here it is
That's it.
back again.
Hmm.
We have the same
Right.
problem. And that's
Hmm.
something that we really try to push that reflection as deep as we can first. Like
Mhm.
my students in my classroom are acting out. Our transitions, we're really struggling with that, like with teachers. Okay, why? Like having our teachers use that same, or our principals use that same kind of a conversation drill down with their teachers so that when you are fixing a problem, you're fixing that problem so you can truly move on and
The
not
root
just fight
cause.
it. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And when I think, when the same problem keeps coming back and back, over and over and over again, the mistake people make is they conclude you just can't do anything about that problem.
Yeah.
And that is the
Right.
biggest mistake is that
Right.
you haven't found the root issue. So
Yes.
that's nice.
Right.
You've been taking actions and they've been
Right.
ineffective, but it doesn't
Yes.
mean that nothing will change. It just means you
No.
haven't found the root issue. And I love
Right.
that and it sounds like you use there's a protocol called the 5 whys,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
like, fine, you can call it a protocol, but at the end of the day, you're asking why 5 times or
Yes.
Right.
6 times if you need, right? But it's
Yeah.
you're like, why is that? I love that. So it's
Right.
step one, find the root cause by saying what's the problem and keep
Mhm.
asking why until you find the root cause. Step
Right.
two is what can we control? What can't we control?
Yeah.
And what can we control that will impact the things that we can't control?
Right. And then once you drill down to that, that's when all those other levels of support come in. Okay, like
Yes.
this is my root cause. This is what I'm really struggling with. This is what our building really struggles with. Well, now I can go to this conference that has sessions around that. Now I can go to the principal exchange and find resources that are going to help me support that. If it's that we can't, understand our data and disaggregate our data, I'm going to go and look at different ideas and ways that other people do that. And I'm going to try to support that. Like once you get to that root cause, you can find those supports that match it.
Mhm.
And when you have these like platforms and other people talking and doing the same things, you can really find new ideas or resources to help you push that forward in the right direction that will hopefully be a permanent fix.
Yes, I
Right.
love that. Thank you. Thank you for bringing us back there, right? Because the support gap at the end of the day is not only finding the root cause for what is the gap at our school, but also
What do
supporting
we Right.
ourselves in
Yes.
that. And I also think, and just kind of one last comment about gaps, I think about things in terms of, is it a knowledge gap? I don't know what it is. A skill
Right.
gap, I don't know how to do it, or mindset gap. And we can get
Right.
professional development around that as well, right? And
Right.
Right.
and conferences are a perfect place to do that. So we have to wrap up. This has been an
Yeah.
awesome conversation.
It has.
I'd love you to share with folks where can they learn more about TPE, the Principals Exchange, and where can they learn more about the conference?
Sure. So we'll give you this information so you can put it in your show notes. But we've got a link to the conference that tells you all about the sessions and the two different options. We have just the live option, or like Sarah said, the VIP option, which gives you those recordings and things if you know that you may not have to revisit it, or you know how your schedule is in reality. And then as far as the Principal Exchange in general, you can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, our website we can give you for the show notes too, which is where you can find all those resources, not just from Sarah and I, but from all of our vendors.
Yep.
And then,
Theprincipalexchange.com.
yep,
Yes.
theprincipalexchange.com. So,
I love
yeah,
it. I love it. I'm excited. I'm excited for the conference and those listening. I would love to see you there. I'd love you to be
Yes.
there. And this is such an affordable way to get
Yes.
professional development.
It
yes,
is. It
yes.
is.
And we are so excited to have you be a part of it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
Becca. We've
you.
enjoyed it.